This is the Coin It Podcast, sponsored by CoinCosmo.com. Have fun like a collector. Think like an investor. Whether you're just a hobbyist or looking for an alternative investment with rare coins, paper money, NFTs, or art, your host, Charles Jonath, is covering it all. Now your host, Charles Jonath.
All right, so we have Jason Feldman, master collector of seated dimes, seated coinage in general. I think you built several typesets, right? In seated stuff, like all around the board, $50. Like, yep. I think you did a complete typeset, right? With dollars, $50, dimes.
I have a complete half dime set. I think the quarter set is complete. $50 set is complete, and the dollar set almost complete, missing a few of the more interesting pieces like the 51, the 52, 70S. But most of the other ones are complete at this point.
Man, that's it, still, even to get to where you're at, it's difficult. It takes time and effort, and then, like, how did you get into all this sort of thing? Well, what attracted you to coins, and then what ultimately led you to say, okay, I'm going to start seriously collecting now?
I've probably been collecting since I'm about 7 years old, and my father collected somewhat as a child and really retained his collections in the old Blue Whitman folders. And his stuff was, like damaged 3-cent pieces, a couple large cents, things like that. Nothing, noteworthy at all. But he ended up passing it on to me, and I just sort of took an interest to it. And I recall I was probably 10 years old at the time, and I ended up going to a coin show, and I think I was probably a few bucks. I bought I want to say it was an 1855 half dime. Oh. And I remember looking at the mintage of it and saying, wow, this is really very, very scarce compared to the stuff I was collecting at the time, which was mostly Mercury dimes and Jefferson nickels. So I got really kind of hooked on it at a young age. And then, like a lot of collectors, when I went off to high school, went off to college, I sort of put things down.
Priorities change, right?
they changed. I mean, I was much more, going to University of Miami in the 80s. It was all about football.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were just winning games and coins were about the furthest thing from my mind, and ended up picking them up again later in life, and then never really intended to collect at the level that I collected at. I really just wanted to fill up my Whitman albums, and then the Dansko albums came out and started filling those up. And that was kind of my goal. I just enjoyed plugging those holes. And then I'm not really even sure how I got into the mint state coins and the much less the registry coins, but it just sort of evolved into that.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens. Like sometimes, like if you're really passionate in general, I think then you're like, well, wait a second here. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. And let me go back and see. And then before you know it, that's what happens. It just accumulates, and you try and get better and better,
that's the direction it went. I never intended to build registry sets. I never intended to competitively build registry sets. It just sort of went that direction, and I just kept improving pieces. And the next thing I know, I started moving up on the rankings. I was like, wow, this is kind of fun. Right. And the rest, I guess, as they say, is history.
Yeah, no, I mean, it draws you in too. I think that was a huge game changer, the registry set, because not only, it gave you a digital version for you to essentially have like what you would have a Whitman book for, but then it just, it gamifies it too. So you want to sort of compete and try to get a better set, even if it's with yourself. I think you want to improve your own collection. But
most definitely.
Why seated coins? Like what gravitated you? Do you have a specific did you always have a love of seated coins, or is it just something you kind of fell into and then you said, okay, I'm going to focus on this? Or
I was a big dime collector, and it probably goes back to the old March of Dimes. And when I started collecting, I was collecting Mercury dimes. As a young kid, you don't really have a lot of money to buy coins with. And
Right.
back when I was younger, there were no slab coins. Although back in those days, I was actually very actively sending my better coins into Annex for photo certificates. So I still have about, I'd say 50 or 75 coins with photo certificates, some of which I've now put into holders, some of which I've just left in the original flips, and just hung on to them. No need to get rid of them. And it was kind of how I got into seated dimes in particular. It was kind of an awkward chance of luck. I was at a coin show, and there was a dealer who I'd become friendly with, who basically dealt more on the wholesale side of things, but they liked me, and they were very happy to let me sit and buy whatever I wanted to buy. And they would get bags and bags of just miscellaneous coins. So one day they had a bag with probably, I want to say, about 500 seated dimes in the bag.
Oh my goodness.
And they were pretty moderately priced. So I'm like, you know what, this could be fun. So I went and basically picked out the nicest example I could find of every different date and mint that he had. And I started plugging an album, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I've already knocked off about half of this set in just one seating. So I then went on a quest to go, start to buy the other ones that I didn't have, some of the more difficult ones. And it was an interesting process because there are a lot of coins I did not think were going to be so difficult to locate. And I'll tell you, the best education I feel one can get on how rare anything is in the way of collecting coins is go out and try to assemble that set. That's when you figure out that some things that you don't think are necessarily that rare are much more difficult than you think they are. And I particularly remember the 43.0 dime being a much tougher coin than I ever thought it was going to be. To this date, it's actually one of the lowest examples in my set, possibly the lowest graded example in my set, is a 43.0 dime. So, it was a kind of an interesting education putting the set together. And, once I put the set together, I actually still have the original set in the Dansko album. Then I just started getting some slab coins, and the slab coins were originally intended because I didn't want to get the really expensive coins in anything other than problem-free condition. Yeah. So, like the big 4 CCs, those are coins that you want to make sure that you have really nice examples of.
Yeah, very smart.
And they're really, really tough. I mean, they're readily available in some of the more problematic grades, and really in circulated grades. It's more just a matter of economics on some of these things. But what you start to see is something like, for example, the S-Mint dimes from the Civil War period. Those are not, I guess now they're a little bit more so, but they're not really expensive coins in circulated conditions, but they're a little bit more problematic than you would think. So, just building the set in itself was a huge educational process for me. Yeah. And, I enjoyed it so much that on the dimes, I went on to do it the rest of the series.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a tough series. The dimes I feel like there's so much there. There's not only the different mints, but then there's varieties and patterns of dimes if you wanted to really go that far. And I mean, I don't know, you got small O versus large O's and the New Orleans. I mean, the different mints have their own, there's so many different things you can assemble within seated dimes just alone. So it's a very difficult series, I think, to collect. And you could spend years doing it.
It is. And, but it's highly rewarding.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've had people ask me before about collecting seated coins, and I always say the half dime is the best series to start with.
You think so?
Because, with the exception of the 70S, it's a very achievable set to finish. And it's, because the mintages are only from 37 to 73, it's not as voluminous of a set as the dimes or the quarters or the halves. So It's an easier set to finish. And, it's I'll tell you, when you're plugging holes in an album, to this day, I still think that was the most fun I ever had collecting coins.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Trying to find those dates and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what gets everyone started.
And watching it come together, watching the whole set just come together as a set, and all. It's really rewarding.
No, man, for sure. That's part of the thing, it's building it up. And then when you do finally complete it, it's amazing. But you made some good points about the half dimes. I think that's really interesting. I never thought about that series as being relatively achievable like that, but I guess it is.
Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, they're difficult ones. Obviously the 46 is a challenge and a half. Especially trying to find a nice one. But again, that's more about economics. The coins are somewhat available, to say the least, especially in circulated condition. You can go out and buy those coins pretty easily.
Right.
It's from an economic perspective, it's not as valuable of a set completed as any of the other seeded series by far. It's a great place to start.
Yeah.
And they're really cool little silver coins too.
No, they are, man. I love that series too. Those and the dimes especially. I don't know. I guess I have more. My preference is more towards the dimes, but both of them are great. That's for sure. I mean,
I love the dimes. I mean, I probably have gone a little overboard at this point with what I'm trying to achieve. I mean, I've still got I've got 3 more I need to finish what I started.
Really?
One of them is readily available from a few dealers, but it's just not coming together quite the way I would want it to. One I think is going to be extremely difficult if I can even find one, and I've not been able to find one in quite a long time looking. And another one I had an opportunity. I got outbid in an auction, a legend auction a few years back. I guess it's probably a little bit more than a few years back at this point. Wish I'd have just gone up a little bit more and taken it down. But, it's almost there, and it's going to be a super exciting day if I ever manage to finish it.
Yeah, man. Well, I hope you do. You will. The opportunity is going to come up. I'm confident in it. For sure. I mean, even though I know it's getting harder these days, I mean, what do you think? What do you make of the market now? I mean, the prices seem like they're inching up, and the great coins are going really quick. Like,
the really nice stuff is bringing a super premium price right now. Buying is become somewhat difficult, to say the least. And especially, with what I'm trying to do on the Seated Dime series in particular, it's not often I even have a shot at an upgrade. And so if I do see an upgrade and I really want the upgrade, I have to pay up for it. And I know I have to pay up for it. But then there are things that I think just slip through the cracks. And, in relative terms, some coins are just not expensive for what they are. Now, it's expensive in terms of the dollars you're spending. But, for example, I've ventured into the early proofs, and those are just difficult.
Yeah.
They are insanely rare. Really, in some cases, exceedingly rare. I mean,
yes.
I remember, it was probably maybe 5 or 6 years ago when I was able to pick up the circulated 1841 with drapery in proof. And that is, at the time I bought the coin, it was the only one known in the hands of collectors. Now, there was the rumored to be a second one, which turned up in the Newman sale. And that, of course, is just a wonder coin. It's not only insanely rare, but the grade on that coin is it's just phenomenal.
Crazy, right?
That a coin from the 1840s could be so well preserved, and it's a really special coin. And what I had loved about that coin is I really started looking into the red books as a kid, and I would see that coin, and I think they had it going off of memory listed as like VFXF and extremely rare or something to that description. And I'm like, God, how cool would it be to own one of those coins?
Right.
And it was a coin that sold in the 1970s for about $70 some odd thousand, just going off of memory. And when I saw that coin go in auction, I remember what I was willing to pay for it. Right. And when the hammer dropped, I was like doing backflips because it sold for, I think, about a third of what I was willing to pay for it. So that was a really super exciting day. And
that's awesome. Sure.
And it's one of two known. I mean, that's it. There's, can another one surface? It could, but if it made it in the red book back,
likely not, right?
Yeah, it's been in the red book at least. I mean, I have red books going back from the very first red book on, and I don't really open the first edition red book that much because for obvious reasons. But I know I've seen that coin in like the red books from like the early 50s. So if it's a red book listed variety, people have been looking for that coin now
for years,
for a very long time, and it's just not turned up. And I think in the red book they've diminished the importance of it. I don't really understand that. It's a very neat coin. The fact that it's a with drapery, and a without drapery, I think makes a huge difference. Just because if you think about it, you have the 40 with drapery and without drapery,
right,
and you have the 41 with drapery and without drapery, and there could be some discussions as to the without drapery being intentionally left off, or was it just polished off? I mean, I'll leave that for people far more knowledgeable than myself.
Right.
Certainly, I'm not qualified to answer that one way or another. But and then in having the 41 proof, although it's a circulated proof, I thought was a super special coin to be able to buy. But then when the other proof came available, the 41 cameo, which was the other variety, I was like, wow, I remember seeing the coin go off once before, and I remember a dealer who had the coin, and I was fairly interested in it at the time, but I wasn't really focused on those proofs. And I'm like, this is a unique opportunity because at this point, as far as I know, there can never be another set of proof seated and circulated seated dimes with varieties that can ever be completed because there's only one of those that exists.
Yeah. And without that coin, that's it. You can't.
That's it. So, and it's sold again. Kind of another one of my fun purchasing stories. I was in the middle of a party with a bunch of friends, and I had heritage on in one ear and people talking to me in the other ear, and I just kept saying higher, yes, until the coin finally hammered. I was like, great. And then people were like, awesome. What are you doing? I just bought a dime. And when you say that to people that aren't collectors,
like, what? Okay, whatever, right?
They're like, what did you do? And it's like, yeah, I bought a really rare dime. They're like, oh, okay. You want another drink? I'm like, okay, sure. I'll have another drink.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was celebrating. So for me, it was a great day.
That's great, man. So would you think, was that like the highlight for you, or what was like the one that stands out the most? You're saying like your best moment in collecting?
I would say I had two distinct moments that were really memorable in terms of collecting. One of them is when I managed to cherry pick my first 41 closed bud. And that was a really exciting moment. I mean, that was just, to me, it was a super cool thing that I was able to, dig through something and just find one. I thought that was a very special moment in my collecting.
Yes.
And it's, you know, something I'm going to remember for a long time. And then, you know, I had two other moments that were, I would say, tied for second as really memorable. One was because I feel like I bought something that was very special, but it flew under the radar, and how it did, I have no idea. But an 1874 CC dime in the highest graded MS-63 went off in an auction at Stack's one day. Wow. And I remember, again, live bidding on the auction. At the time, I was actually on a cruise ship, so I was really hoping my internet connection would be good.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't, that would have been a bummer.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was thrown for a loop because I thought the coin was going off in the platinum sale or the Stack's equivalent of the, I think it was the rarities or whatever they do at night. Yeah, I thought it was a nighttime sale. And I was looking at something else that was going off in the day, and the coin comes up for auction.
That's
and I'm
crazy.
like, wait a second. I didn't think the coin was going off. I thought the coin was going off at night. Well, apparently I wasn't the only one who was under that impression. I think a few other people may have thought the same thing, and we were just wrong. It was in the catalog. It was clearly laid out. It was just, you know, making an assumption that was wrong. And when the final hammer dropped on that coin, I was doing backflips. I was so happy.
Couldn't believe it, right?
I bought that coin for so much less than I was willing to pay for it. It was silly. I mean, it was, for me, the highest graded 74cc, which is the rarest seated dime. I mean, I had to win that coin. That was just something that I really desperately wanted to get. And, you know, to be able to get it at a great price is
tough.
You know, all the better.
Yeah.
So that was a very special moment. And, you know, the other one, which I think is really a super memorable moment, is, you know, when, you know, due to the unfortunate circumstances, when Gene Gardner's set was, you know, ultimately sold off, that really was what took my collecting to a whole nother level, because there were some of the most amazing seated coins on the planet were basically
sitting in that guy's collection. Yeah.
He had he had everything, and the quality of his coins were just unbelievable. And if you really look, he had all the, he actually had all the early proofs as well. I mean, Gene's collection was just leaps and bounds better than probably anything that will ever be assembled ever again. It was just a spectacular collection that he managed to assemble. And, you know, to be able to pick up a few of the pieces here and there from his collection was one of the greatest honors that I could ever have in my life, to be able to say I was able to take some of the coins that were in the best seated set ever assembled and put them into my collection. Right. But when the 1845 dime went off, that was, again, I mean, you know, that was the coin I had to have. And not just because PCGS graded it MS-69, which, you know, maybe by today's standards, that might be a little bit high of a grade, but, you know, it's still in that old green holder right out of the sale. But it was an 1845 and it was uncirculated, and it's a coin that should never exist. I mean, I mean, if you think about the conditions in the mint,
the 45Os are tough coins, man, to find in mint state.
Just imagine what was going on in 1845 down in New Orleans when they were minting coins.
Right.
And now somebody had to literally say, I'm going to pull this one as soon as it's struck, before it hits anything, and I'm going to save it.
Save it, yeah.
That to me is just that's a coin that by all means it should not exist.
Right.
But you know, it does, and you know, it's one of those coins that now it's in my collection. It's a very special piece, and you know, I truly enjoy it. I like to periodically go to the bank and take a look at it, just because it's really that cool of a coin.
That's awesome, man. Have your kids got into it at all, or no?
The greatest disappointment. I have tried and tried and tried. They have a bunch of coins. They sort of look at them from time to time, but they're just not gravitating towards collecting.
Yeah,
and
they're young. Give it time. Maybe, you never know.
Yep. Hopefully as they get a little bit older, they'll get interested in it. But if not, that's
yes,
something that is not uncommon.
Right. At least you got them to be Cans fans, right?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, they're fully brainwashed at this point.
That's great, man. That's funny. So, like, what if you had to start all over again from scratch collecting? Like, how would you approach it? Like, what? And what was the biggest lesson really you think you learned?
No, one of the biggest lessons I've learned is you have to be very careful where you place your trust, especially when you're first starting. Because if you place your trust in the wrong people, you are going to get some really big surprises once you learn what it is that you've actually bought. Yeah. So grading is very subjective, even within slabs. CAC has made a nice difference. But again, it's not perfect, but it's certainly a huge improvement. But I remember back looking in the late '80s, we all thought that coins were going to become like a commodity, and I remember buying MS-65 Mercury dimes from Silvertown at I want to say between $30 and $150 a piece, that today are worth maybe 30 or 150 to 150 bucks a piece. They never went anywhere. But what's interesting is, and they're in the original Rattler holders, but what's interesting, I send a lot of them into CAC. Some did not sticker, some green stickered, and some gold stickered.
Wow. So you're going to mix bunch. Yeah. Right.
So what that tells you is when you're buying a coin, you have to buy the coin. You can't buy the holder. That's obviously a lesson that every collector needs to learn, is you have to be able to look at a coin and judge it for yourself. Yeah. And if you're not able to judge it for yourself, you have to really trust the people around you in terms of what they're selling you. There's some dealers that, only sell PCGS, CAC coins, and, maybe you'll pay more, maybe you won't. But generally speaking, if you stick with that combination, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Raw coins is the exact opposite.
Exactly.
Who knows what you're getting?
Right.
So that's, one of the things I've learned is, there are people I put my trust into, and that trust was very misplaced. And then there's people I put my trust in, and I'm going to do very well if I ever decide to sell what they've sold me, because they've sold me some very high quality coins.
Yeah, that's good. I hope that 1854 with arrows is doing you well.
The original one that I bought as a kid?
The proof one. The proof one I sold you.
Oh, the 1854 with arrows is a lovely coin.
Yeah. I always liked that one. That was it had I remember the red color still on it. It had the little red toning. That's hard to find quality like that in the different tones and stuff like that. That's the thing. When in the late '80s, I feel like when Wall Street got involved in it, it's as you said, they thought a 65 would be a 65, but it's not the case. There's the subjectivity of grading, then also the toning and the different qualities within the grade. I mean, you really have to use your eye.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's eye appeal. I mean, the toning can make or break a coin, multiple times over. I love toned coins personally. I'm not a huge fan of black to white coins. I have some, but I'm not a huge fan of them. When I see a really nicely toned coin, I've actually done, what I call a lateral upgrade to my registry set, where, for example, might have a coin that's a 65 or 66, but I see a prettier example of the same exact coin, and I'll still buy it anyways. because even though it's not a numerical upgrade or to me, it's an upgrade. My coin collection is improved by adding better pieces than the ones I have, even if the grades don't reflect it. Yeah. And, and I can say for certain whenever you go to sell your collection, if that time comes, the market's going to reward the better looking tone coins over the, mediocre or, coins with not as much eye appeal.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference. I mean, like most collectors, I paid stupid premium sometimes for really nice rainbow tone coins. But sometimes something just speaks to you and you just say, I love it. I have to have it. And I'm going to buy it. I mean, I ended up doing that with a 1942 proof set, and the coins are from outer space, or they're I mean, I think the Washington quarter in that set could be one of the nicest tone quarters that exists on the planet.
Isn't that amazing though? But that stuff, I think you'll wind up making out now, because I mean, even these Walking Liberty halves and stuff like that, those proofs from the early 40s, late 30s, I mean, some of them toned up incredibly. And then they're going for stupid premiums, just really high.
Yep. Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, I also collected, Walking Liberty half dollars. I, have, mostly the 34s and up. I didn't get into the earlier ones. Some of them have some really great toning. The proofs are phenomenal. I mean, I remember it was probably 7-8 years ago in a heritage sale. I just saw, and I don't remember the exact date. It was one of the Walker proofs, and the toning was unbelievable. It was a 68 proof 68 with a CAC sticker. So I'm like, you know what? I like this. I'll buy it. And last time I went to go look at the price, probably about 6 months ago, it's gone up a tremendous amount from when I bought it. I mean, I'm not really looking to sell it. I just put it in my typeset, but I'm like, this is, at the time I bought it, I said, this is a great coin. And now in a market like this, this is the kind of coin that if it gets into an auction, it's going to probably do very well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely, I don't see the market stopping anytime soon, because it's just the whenever there's a quality coin come up, it's just so difficult to get. And I feel like, with the combination of inflation and stuff, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be tough. I think coins, the good stuff is going to just keep going up. And then the more common stuff, I think eventually we see a squish in premiums over time.
I think, common coins are going to always be common coins. Rare coins are always going to be rare. Coins with amazing eye appeal are always going to be in high demand. In a hot market, and then even in a not so hot market, people are going to really gravitate towards things that are of exceptional quality. I think people always have, to some degree. And in a market like this, I mean, this is a red hot market right now, as everybody knows. A lot of really choice material is being, impounded in certain collections, and they're not coming up for sale.
No,
I mean, I know there are coins that are duplicates for some people that I would love to be able to buy, because I know that they've upgraded them because they've outbid me on other coins, and yet they never make it to the market. So,
that's the thing.
It's a good investment.
A lot of them aren't even giving up their duplicates.
No, and honestly, I'm as guilty as anyone else. I've actually tried to let a few go from time to time, but for the most part, I really haven't sold many of my duplicates either.
Right.
I've sold some of them, but I really haven't just sat there and dug through my duplicates and said, what is it I can give up, and what is it that I just want to keep for whatever the reason. And I'm not even trying to put together multiple sets. I think some people actually are, and that's great. But I also feel like I'm a collector, and if a collector really needs something and I've got a duplicate, I'll try to make the coin available to that person, just because I think hey, if I was in that person's shoes, I would appreciate the same opportunity.
Right.
So a lot of times that may be why I end up just letting go of something. Unfortunately, it's been super busy the last couple of years working on a few projects, and haven't had nearly the time I used to spend on coins. I spend, enough time just, going through the some of the internet sites, going through the auctions to see what comes up. And but I have not gone to a show in probably since before COVID, I guess.
Yeah.
Although I've tried to get to 2 or 3 shows and had to cancel last minute just because something came up. I just couldn't break away.
It's crazy.
But it's still nice to be able to place things with certain people. And I've done that before. And, sometimes it's not about getting, the most money. It's about putting something in a home that I know it's going to be really appreciated.
Exactly.
And that to me, it's for me personally, I'd rather, not get top dollar, but sell something to someone who I know is going to appreciate it as much as I did when I bought it.
Yeah.
And know that I put something in a really good home. And maybe that person, somewhere down the road, will find themselves in the position where they in turn can return the favor to yet another collector somewhere down the road.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for me personally, I don't see, why you need to keep coins unless they serve a purpose in your collection. But also being a pretty busy guy, I can appreciate that for some people, it's just they don't have the time to sit there and go through it and make that decision.
Yeah.
And it's just easier to say, all right, let me just leave that in another box and I'll get to it somewhere down the road. I mean, I know I have a box of coins that I'm planning on sending off to a dealer so that he can make them available to other collectors. And it's right. Embarrassing how long it's taking me to get this stuff sent off.
This is not your priority,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just, I wish I could get to it. But when stuff's in a bank vault and sometimes in a bank vault in another city, it makes
hard,
it a little bit more challenging.
No, for sure. That's that's the way it goes. Are you going to go to the summer fun? Because it's in your backyard, or no?
It is. I am hoping to be able to make it. I think I will this time. I actually, I wanted to go to fun and just couldn't break away. Sometimes what happens is I just have conflicts, and I want to go to Baltimore. I'm overdue to go there. It's just, I've just been, traveling and running around and just haven't been able to make it. And, there's certainly a lot of people I'd love to see and say hello to I haven't seen since before the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I think with a little bit of luck, I'll be able to be at the fun show this year, especially, the summer fun is always, I remember it as a quiet show, but now it's not quiet anymore. And fun is always great.
Yeah, it's true. I do. I love that show. The winter fun obviously is huge, but summer fun is good too, I think. I mean, I'm going to be there. I'll be down in town. I'll be in town that week of July, I think it's second week of July or something. Not quite sure.
Yeah. I just have to make sure I just have to check. I don't even know the exact date of it. I just have to check for scheduling conflicts because I know I'm going away out of the country at some point in July, but I think it's not to the middle of July. And, like I said, it's got to be great to be able to go to a coin show again. I mean, getting out in the real world is a blast. I mean, I can tell you now, being up in New York City, a year ago, it was a ghost town.
Right.
And now it is really packed again. So it's really fun to watch the world reopen. And, and like most other people, there's just a lot of people I haven't seen in far too long.
Yeah, we went through a difficult couple of years for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. It's good to start seeing everything, and I'm hoping things are going to get better. It seems like they are. So stuff's opening up, and we're getting there. We're getting there for sure. So what's next for you in coins and collecting?
Well, I've got a few early proof dimes I'm trying to knock off, but realistically speaking, they have to come up for sale. And when you have things that just don't come up for sale very often, one piece I know has to come up for sale in probably 7 or 8 years anywhere. One piece that I do need, there's some dealers that have them, but they're not being very realistic. So at some point they'll decide they're ready to sell them, and I'm the logical buyer. So I'd love to be able to knock that out. But now I'm into collecting some very kind of interesting stuff. I mean, I managed to upgrade my dime set, a few times a year. I'll find something. And when I see opportunities, I'll usually, take them. But in this kind of a market, some things are going at some pretty wild numbers. And, I'm pretty disciplined in how I buy.
That's good.
I don't mind overpaying, but I do not want to, be the person that just paid stupid money for a coin that's, average or above average quality.
Exactly.
If it's special, then sure. I mean, I recall when I bought my 1843 dime, it was in an Annex 53 holder, and I worked with a very reputable major dealer who helped me to secure the coin. And, I thought I had a number in my head and was convinced that the number that I thought in my head was just wrong. And by wrong, meaning it was 5 times over PCGS guide, 500% of the guide. And I ended up buying it anyways because I just wanted that piece. I didn't know when I would see another one so quickly. And as it turns out, it's been over a decade and I haven't seen another one since.
So you did the right thing, right? But you hit the nail on the head, I think, because I think it's okay. Overpaying for the right coin is fine. Overpaying for the average coin, no. Right?
Yep, exactly. So what I've set my sights on for now is just doing a good old-fashioned typeset. And that's been a lot of fun. I'm buying some, really interesting stuff. Every coin is different because, that's the nature of, it's sort of like the old Dansko 70/70 set. You buy one of everything, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm looking at things like, I think next on the list is a $10 bust gold, which would be fun. Nice. And there's a few other things in there that are on the radar, like a bust quarter. I just haven't found one that I love. I like, when it comes to my typeset, every coin in the set really has to kind of speak to me in some way or another. And it doesn't mean it has to be a super high numerical grade, but the eye appeal just has to be there, 100% there. Otherwise, I really just would rather wait till I find something that I'm in love with. And I've actually been dabbling a little bit in ancients, which is kind of fun.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why. I just think there's so much history in holding a coin. Yeah. That's, if you're dealing with something that's,
thousands of years old, right? And that kind of, exactly. In a nice condition too. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. It's like,
I think those are super cool. And then, I've been buying off metal, patterns. So I bought quite a few of those. I try to stay with the original dies, but in different metals. So I've been able to, the patterns that are like aluminum and copper. So I think those are pretty cool. I was able to pick up a really neat piece out of the John McCluskey sale. I actually really loved it. It was a 1850s dime off center uncirculated, which to me, that was a really cool coin.
Very cool.
I looked at the double strike seated dime that just went off at Heritage. I guess it was last week, and I had a number in my mind for a coin like that. It really blew through what I thought it was going to go through. I think it sold for about $10,000, which it's an insane rarity. But that's a coin that, unless you're a real hardcore error specialist, that was a coin I felt was better left to go to somebody who's more of an errors guy than a seated guy.
Sure.
So, I did let that one get away. But I walked away with a few consolation prizes anyways from the sale. So it was still good.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate you coming on, man. I know you're a busy guy, and I know it's late there, so I'm going to let you go, but it was great talking to you. And there was so much there, and it's great hearing those stories and collecting over the years, because we all, I think, have those similar stories where we come into things and great finds, and trying to build a set like that is just really difficult, but it's very rewarding at the same time. So, I'm happy that you were able to share it with us.
No, I appreciate it. For me, the key is patience and discipline.
Yeah.
You have to be patient. You have to be disciplined. It's very easy to buy the wrong coin, and it's very hard to sell the wrong coin.
Yes.
So you have to just take your time, and the fun in collecting, it's the journey. It's not the destination, because once the set is done, it's going to be done.
That's
but
it.
You want to have as much fun as you possibly can have getting to that point. So
Agreed.
Yeah, taking your time is and getting the right coin, that's really the key to it all, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. It is all about that. You got to have fun along the way.
Absolutely. That's the whole idea. It's a hobby. This is meant to be fun and pleasurable.
Right.
So have as much fun as you possibly can.
I agree. That's it, man. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
All right, Jay. Well, I'll let you
all
go.
Right.
Take care over there and be well, okay?
Thank you. Same to you. Have a great evening.
Maybe I'll see you in Florida if you're there.
Absolutely. I'll drop you a note if I know I'm coming.
All right, for sure, man. Take care. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Later.
Good night.
Bye.